The Housing and Community and Economic Development Committee will now come to order. If you'd like to have private conversations, you're welcome to go outside through those double doors, and when you're done, come back in and participate in the hearing. But the acoustics in here aren't the best, so appreciate it very much if people could respect the committee process and take their conversations outside if they choose to have them. We will start with one of the first motion includes one of the members of the committee. Let's give them a little time to get here. We'll move to item number 2 first.
Sure. Michael Keck, CLA's office. Item number 2, LEHD and CAO report relative to authorization to negotiate and execute a loan servicing contract in amount not to exceed $450,000 with the Marin National Community Services, Inc. to manage LEHD's amortizing loan portfolio.
Okay. Is there anybody here to speak on item number 2? We're on item number 2. You can come forward. But as far as the public goes, anybody here to speak on item number 2? We do not have any public comment cards filled out for item number 2. Public comment is open at this time for item number 2. Seeing no one come forward and no cards filled out on item number 2. Public comment on item number 2 is now closed. So with that, any comments on the contract?
Just simply that we're requesting approval to move forward with an amortizing contract for servicing the department's amortizing loan portfolio.
So basically, they're our servicer.
They're our servicer.
Yeah. We have loans, but we're not servicing experts, so we're contracting somebody to service our loan.
We're contracting out the amortizing loan portion of the portfolio only.
So that means that their job is to make sure that the amortizations, the calculations are correct, so the billings are correct, or what?
No, their job is to collect payments, call borrowers if they're late, do workouts with borrowers, and they have to do this on a monthly basis.
That's what I call servicing.
Yes.
It's what Wells Fargo has a department to do that, or what have you. For example, I'm just giving an example. Wells Fargo, for example, say they have home loans. They have a department where people actually call people up when they're late or what have you, explain to them if they have any questions, et cetera. That's what I call servicing.
Exactly.
So basically, they're servicing our loans for us. We're not in the business of servicing, and they are. Okay. Thank you. So with that, it'll be the recommendation of the chair that we adopt the CAO's recommendations. Thank you. Go to item number 3.
Of course. Item number 3, LEHD report and resolution and CAO report relative to authorization of the post-issuance tax compliance procedures for the city's housing revenue bond program.
Okay, we'll ask if anybody's here from the public to comment on item number 3. Is anybody here to comment on item number 3? Seeing no one come forward, I do not have any comment cards filled out for item number 3. Public comment is open, and it is now closed. So with that, I have a question. Now, is this required for all projects in Los Angeles, irrespective of who the issuer is, or just bonds issued by LA Housing Department?
Mario Vasquez with the City Administrative Officer. These are for conduit borrowers that the Housing Department has negotiated with. So it is not all issuers. The resolution specifically speaks to the Housing Department, but the requirements are common throughout the bond industry.
Okay. So what you're telling me is that our requirements are basically fairly consistent with what is required either by state or federal law or what have you to make sure that those issuances are in compliance?
Correct.
Okay. Is there any other bells and whistles that the City of LA has added to that other than compliance with federal and state requirements?
And no, we're just memorializing the requirements in one document.
Okay. All right. Okay. So with that, it'll be the recommendation of the chair to approve the CAO's recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go to item number 4.
Item number 4, joint LAHD and LA Department of Building and Safety report relative to the substandard rental housing property located at 443 and 445 West 49th Street, and corrective action taken by LHD and LADBS.
Okay. I'll ask, I don't have any public comment cards on item number 4. Public comment is now open on item number 4. Is there anybody here from the public to speak on item number 4? Seeing no public comment cards before me on item number 4, no one coming forward. Item number 4, public comment is now closed. It appears that this is a very interesting situation. How many units is this property zoned for?
Zoned for?
Yeah.
It's a multifamily zone, so it's an approved 3-unit apartment building.
It's an approved 3-unit apartment building.
Yes, sir.
And how many units did it seem to have when we discovered that
Well,
there were more than 3?
Yeah, up to 40,
Up to 40.
yes,
That's amazing.
it is.
So basically, we did what we could or had to do to bring it back into compliance with the 3 units that were,
Yeah.
that it did have permits for?
At this point, once we found out that the violation existed, we issued that an order to the owner to restore it to its approved use. Of course, the owner couldn't do that in a timely manner, so as a result, we had to vacate the unit based on structural conditions that existed on the building that were determined by the Department of Building Safety's engineering staff. So at this point, the building is vacant, it's secured, and the owner apparently is trying to make steps or efforts to restore the building back to its approved use.
Did the current owner claim that they inherited the 40 units or anything? Was there some story on this? Because this is amazing.
I've not heard that story, Councilman. My understanding is that the owner took the steps to convert the attic into a number of accommodations out in that area, in that building.
That's a big attic.
It's a
Wow.
There were some changes, structural changes to the building, which is why inspectors from the Housing Department requested analysis from the Department of Building Safety's engineering staff. And they determined that the building was structurally unsound, which is the reason why we vacated the building.
Mm-hmm. Is anybody aware, apparently, from all of the work that was done, et cetera, and on behalf of the city and all the things that we had to do, we'll be having a lien on the property of $322,000 or something like that?
Yes, sir. We've already applied the lien to the property.
That includes any and all fees or fines, et cetera, that the city's imposing on this property?
That is correct, sir.
And does anybody know if we're in second or third or fourth or fifth place on this property with this lien?
I don't know. I'd have to ask the attorneys.
Yeah, by the time we get to council, I'd be curious to know what position we're in on this property. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, sir.
Do you have any pictures of this?
We have plenty of pictures.
Just, that's fine. Just bring the pictures with you and pass them around to the council. If you can just pass them around to the council when this comes to city council,
Okay.
I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay, well, this is interesting. 3 units to 40. Wow. But back to 3.
Well, at this point, the building is vacant, and the owner is, again, trying to restore it back to its approved use.
So right now, there's nobody occupying the
That's
3
correct.
units?
That's right.
Okay. All right. Okay, well, thank you very much. So with that, we'll receive and file the joint report. Okay, well, you know what, leave me with those pictures. I gotta look at these. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll now go to item number 5.
Item number 5, LHD and CAO to report relative to approval of the results of the RFP for tenant outreach and educational services for the city's rent escrow account program and utility maintenance program, authority to execute contracts with selected contractors for a term of 12 months, effective July 1st, 2012 through June 30th, 2013, with 2 one-year renewal options, and authority to execute a second amendment to the landlord outreach contract for Charles and Cynthia Aberly, Inc., DBA, the Eberly Company, to increase the contract amount and to extend the term of the contract and related actions.
Okay, is there anybody here to comment on item number 5? We do have a couple. We have Julia Bradford, and we also have Dina Eberly, I'm assuming. I apologize, I can't read that writing.
I think we're going to hold off for right now.
Okay, so you're not going to speak on item 5? Okay. So with that, Julia and Dina did fill out cards on item number 5. They chose not to speak on item number 5. And so we're going to ask, is there anybody else here on item number 5 from the public to speak? Seeing none, public comment on item number 5 is now closed. I have a question to the Housing Department staff.
Good morning, Roya Babazadeh, Housing Department.
Good morning. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 different contracts that we're talking about here. And the purpose of these organizations is to educate tenants, is it?
Correct.
By and large?
To educate tenants and provide them with information they need to know about their rights and responsibilities under our 2 programs, Rent Escrow Account Program, REAP, and Utility Maintenance Program, UMP, and encourage them to participate in the program because the success of the program depends on participation of tenants to submit their rents to the escrow account, so that money can be used to make improvements in the property.
Okay. All right. So do we have any effort to educate landlords?
We do. We hired a contractor, the Eberly Company, in 2011, January 2011, to specifically tailor services to the need of the property owners and assist them to know what they need to do to expedite the removal of their properties from REAP and make the corrections. Beside Eberly Company that specifically provides services to the property owners, the tenant outreach contractors also assist property owners in a way when there is a conflict between landlords and the tenant and possibility of not providing access to the landlord to do the improvement. The tenant outreach contractors work with the landlord outreach contractor to resolve the conflict and provide access to the property owner. They also do the site visit of the property, review the violations, and provide advisory opinion to the property owner as to completion of the work and what needs to be done.
Okay. Now, when it comes to the Eberly Company, what seems to be the satisfaction or non-satisfaction with their contract so far?
We get all good comments and input from the property owners. In fact, property owner is here to testify that. We record some of these. We can provide you with that information.
Okay.
Property owners relate to Eberly Company much easier because Eberly Company has extensive background of property management and assisting property owners in REAP and can provide them with that expertise, assist them.
Okay. Who in the department determined, or how was it determined to have 4 contracts totaling $420,000 for the tenant advocate organizations. And how much is the contract with Everly?
Currently, all the contracts compensation is $87,500. With this transmittal in front of you, we are raising all the contract compensation to $105,000.
Uh-huh.
The total funding for all the outreach contractors is $525,000. And we did a study and we...
Including Everly?
Including Everly. We are not changing the total compensation. We are increasing contract amount by reducing the number of contractors from a total of 6 to 5. We determined that we can more efficiently meet the need of the program by reducing the number of tenant outreach contractors from 5 to 4.
Okay, thank you, I can see that by the chart. However, how did the department determine to have 1/5 of the money to go toward contracting Everly and 4/5 of the money going to educating tenants? So one is educating and trying to help make sure that landlords are complying or understand what they need to contend with, and the other one is trying to educate tenants. But $4 out of $5 is going to educate tenants, and $1 out of $5 is going to educate landlords. How did the department come up with that ratio?
We use, for one thing, we use the ratio of the number of tenants in the properties versus number of landlords. Majority of the properties in REAP have 4 to 5 units. So outreach to 4 to 5 tenants versus 1 landlord. Besides that, the outreach to tenants appears to be more complicated because of their availability and their access to the internet. So the level of services, that one-on-one services, it's more required for the tenant than for property owners. So mostly weighted over, toward number of tenants versus number of landlords.
Mm-hmm. What's the total budget of the REAP program within the department? What's the annual budget, the scope of what it costs to run the REAP program overall?
We do have staff of 12. I don't have the budget number exactly in mind, but 12 staff, 3 clerk typists and 1 senior clerk typist. They spend most of their time daily operating REAP hotline, which assists property owners by having a live operator providing them information about REAP and providing information about status of their case. And we do have 4 management assistants and 2 management analysts and 1 senior that assist special cases, providing direct information and running the cases through closure process, providing information for final accounting of the cases. Total of 12 staff covers most of the cost of the administration.
Mm-hmm. Well, I appreciate the logic in the 4-to-1 ratio, but I'm not exactly sure that it's that dramatic of access and sophistication on when it comes to property owners that on average own 4 to 5 units. I could see if it's a landlord who owns hundreds of units, probably got a pretty sophisticated operation, but I would think that most of the landlords who own 4 to 5 units tend to be mom and pop individuals, and I would think that a good average, a good percentage of them are probably retired, and that's kind of like their retirement nest egg right there that they're managing. So I'm not convinced that a 4-to-1 ratio is the right balance.
About 2 years ago, based on the motion that was presented to us, we did assessment of the mom and pop property owners in the RIP to see, although it shows that majority of the properties in RIP to be 4 to 5 units, what percentage of these property owners are mom and pop as defined to be mom and pop? Based on assessment that we had, majority of these properties are not owned by really definition of the mom and pop, but rather there are investors that invest on small scale properties, and they have many 4 to 5 units properties. At that time, we could come up with a list of 200 properties that were in RIP that we could identify as mom and pop, and we developed a pilot program to assist them, and we look for funding for them, and that pilot program is on the way to be funded, and these property owners, mom and pop property owners, are going to get another assistance through that pilot program.
Oh, okay. So that's a different item that complements some of this activity?
Correct.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to expect that you or somebody from the department are going to explain to my chief of staff in detail exactly what that proposal is. I'm definitely want to have some input on that. Okay. Well, thank you for answering the questions. Okay. So with that, we'll go ahead and the chair will recommend that we adopt the CAO report. Thank you very much. Okay, that moves us back to item number 1. Please read item number 1 into the record.
Sure. Item number 1, motion Garcetti Alarcon relative to a request to the city attorney prepare and present an amendment to the foreclosure registry program ordinance within 60 days to include an enforcement fee levied on foreclosed properties at the notice of default, dedicated code enforcement staff to conduct proactive inspections of registry properties, provisions requiring direct communications between banks and investor owners of foreclosed properties, and the Los Angeles Department of Building and Safety, and a requirement that banks and investor owners report monthly on the status of their foreclosed properties, and an inspection to the Los Angeles Housing Department to work with instruction for the LAHD to work with the LA County Assessor's Office to develop a system that provides more timely information to LHD regarding notice of default properties.
Okay. Thank you very
Sorry,
much.
this item is also scheduled today in council.
Okay. So with that, we'll open up public comment first. I do have a handful of public comment cards, and I'll read them in the order in which they are before me. Can you please come forward to speak on item number 1? Yegi Keshishian. Sorry about that. If you could repeat your name when you get up. I'm sure I said it wrong. Beverly Roberts, Steve Askin, and Abdullah Mohammed. Okay.
Good morning.
Please start. Begin.
Yeli Keshishin with the Central City Association of Los Angeles. We at CCA understand the importance of alleviating blight in our neighborhoods throughout Los Angeles. That being said, we believe more time is needed to fully consider all the implications of this motion. While the motion instructs that the city attorney include language requiring direct communication between the city and the banks, not to mention proposes a new enforcement mechanism, it's our understanding that banks have not yet been consulted about the best way or any alternative way that the city can achieve its goals of reducing blight on foreclosed properties. We believe this legislation is moving too quickly. The right parties need to be at the table so policymaking can be both informed and judicious. Thank you.
Okay. Before you speak, you brought up some really good points. If this were my motion, that's the way I would have done it. I would have brought as many stakeholders to the table. I happen to be a former real estate broker. I happen to have actually worked on actual foreclosures on behalf of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac back in the day. But unfortunately, what I can tell you is there are some banks that are extremely responsible. They probably wouldn't need anything like this because they're extremely proactive. but there are other banks who are not. And that's the big problem with the big city of Los Angeles. We have 4 million inhabitants, and we have well over 1 million units of housing within our city's limits. And when you have that many units, and you just have, even if it's a 10% of the banks are negligent. You have swimming pools, for example, that are accessible to children. In addition to that, they're manifesting all kinds of problems when they're not maintained, et cetera. And then you have vagrancy, you have crack houses that end up, manifesting because a bank is negligent, and people take advantage of the fact that that house is empty and can have an extremely detrimental impact on the entire community, certainly on that street. So I personally do appreciate the recommendation of the approach that you're talking about. However, the problem is pre-existing, ongoing, and so appreciate your suggestion. You may want to talk to Garcetti and Alarcon about that. But overall, we need to do something like this. Now, if this is not exactly what we would have come up with had we had more input from the banks, I can appreciate that. And I'm not trying to admonish you. I'm just saying I agree that that's exactly what we should have done. A lot more dialogue with all the stakeholders. But here we are. So thank you. Thank you very much. Next.
My name is Beverly Roberts, and I'm with ACE. And we all know about the foreclosed and the blighted homes. I personally have been to some of those homes, and they are not pretty. They smell. They're terrible in our communities. And I wasn't brought up like that. I'm not used to that. And I don't like it.
That's right.
So I want something done about it. We are the people. We have a say-so. We've had this ordinance for 2 years. And as the kids say, why are you tripping? Why don't we get this done? Other cities have passed it, and it's worked. So please tell me why it's not done. It's time we make this ordinance work.
Okay. Thank you. Just so you understand, today on the city council floor, it will be taken up by the full council.
And I hope it's to our advantage.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Next.
Next. Yes, good morning. How you doing? My name is Abdullah Muhammad. I'm a member of the Alliance of Californians for Community Empowerment, acronym for ACE, Los Angeles chapter. And we support the Garcetti and Alarcon's amendments to this blighted housing ordinance. This is nothing new in our community. This has been going on for decades and decades. Now we have an ordinance that we can add some teeth to really keep our community in a safe condition. Whereas in the past, these things have been happening, like I said, for years, and nothing has been done about it. Houses have been sitting up for years and years, being stripped. It's a safety hazard in our community. Our children are scared to come out and play or walk because you never know what might happen to our children in these communities. So we have a chance to really correct this hazard that's been going on for all these years and make our community safe, make it a community like any other community that have decent community, have decent people living there. So, yes, the banks have been neglectful of their job. They've been neglectful for years. They know this has been happening for years. They know this didn't happen yesterday. This has been going on for decades, and we've been begging them to, hey, man, come and do what you're supposed to do. These are your properties, and you just let them linger there. So when it gets so bad, the city had to come out, tearing them down, and gate them up. So that's money that's city throwing away that the city could use, and they've been skating for years with this condition. So it's time to hold their feet to the fire for once and let them realize, hey, the people are tired of this and we need something done. We need our city council to pass these amendments so we could get this ordinance on its legs and let it run and let it do what it's supposed to do, because if we don't, we're going to be back here again dealing with the same issue. It's not like we like our community to have blighted houses in there. It ain't like we like them to sit there for years and years. We just get tired because we like our community to be like anybody else's community, and we want our children to be able to live in a safe community just like the bankers here live safe in their communities around where they live. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
And my name is Steve Askin. I'm Research Director for Good Jobs LA, and I'd actually intended to wait for full council to speak, but there were some comments made that do require a response. When this ordinance was adopted 2 years ago, the banks and other market participants were very heavily involved in the conversations about the ordinance. Unfortunately, this resulted in an ordinance which it has proved very difficult to enforce. Since then, the banks have had 2 years to respond to the ordinance, and they have responded. I'm going to submit for the record the report that Good Jobs LA with other organizations prepared, in which in just 3 weeks in the community in South LA, we found 906 homes blighted per the standards of this ordinance. What we have seen is a lack of enforcement. We have seen banks failing to take appropriate action to clean up blighted houses. As Beverly and others said, it is a crisis in the community, so we very strongly support passage of these amendments as they've been proposed and passage today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good job. I'm sorry, Alvanon? Heard? Okay. And Arnie Corlin and Doug Arsenal. Please. Speak and you shall be heard.
I know it. Listen, this is what I like to say. It is time that we stop playing, okay? We have gone along with the banks long enough. I love what you just said, Cardenas. You said it right to the gentleman that was sitting here. We have played with them. They made money. They wanted the property. They got it. Now we're going to make them take care of it. They put the families out. Now they think we're going to live in these kind of conditions while they sit up there in their little Eiffel Towers, count their money, and think we're going to accept it. We've dealt with them for 2 years. It's over with. I hope they get the message, because we're ready to move. City Council, I know you're going to pass it. I feel it. But we're tired of this. I don't think they want their children to walk down the street and look at some of the houses that our children have to deal with. Hey, baby, it may be the ghetto, but it's our ghetto, and you don't take care of it because you're making money off it. I'm not pointing at you all. I know you're on the council, okay? But, hey, we are here to make sure it passes today. I know it's going to pass. We have changed it. We are playing with them. It's over. It's done with. And today is the day. Let's move. Let's be counted. We're the people. Hey, you know what? We're going to give them a little earthquake. Let them come down out of their Eiffel Towers and let them know we're not playing no more. It's all over. Hey, everybody here, have a God bless day. Let's go to council and hear the vote. Thank you very much. God be with you. Oh, I got a few more minutes. Is there anything else I'd like to say? It's all over, banks. Not the good ones. We know we got some good ones out there, but we're talking about those that have been sitting on their little booty butts thinking we're playing. It's all over with, and we're on the move. Hey, thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Arnie?
Good morning, Councilmember. My name is Arnie Corlin. As a real estate investor, it is important for me to identify my return on investment. This should also be true of the public sector in order for it to lower its cost of serving their constituency. I have regularly volunteered for LAPD in various communities around the city for a number of years, working to contact asset managers on hundreds of foreclosed properties. Then as a peer, share best practices to resolve the nuisance issue. I would strongly recommend that the return on investment for the city by responsibly creating a self-registry database for asset managers at no charge would be greater than those attempting to do the right thing and register. Those higher fees come at a price for the city and are the reason why many of us who give back to the community no longer invest in the city. However, due to the lack of proper response by many of these asset managers, and as an industry professional, I would suggest the following 4 items. Number 1, lack of registry compliance would warrant a fine much higher than $155 and possibly escalating over a reasonable period of time. An ordinance should include a lien against the property. Number 2, if nuisance issues occur and the representative has registered and there is a lack of response to resolve nuisance issue, again, a fine should be instituted. Number 3, if there is no registration, complaints of nuisance issues occur, and there is no response from an asset manager, I would suggest making that a misdemeanor, a large fine, and a lien against the property. Number 4, currently there is no proper efficient means for asset managers to learn how to properly control some of these nuisance issues, nor is there efficient and proper manner to know how to contact LAPD resources such as a senior lead officer. Offer everyone the voluntary abilities to succeed. Classes should be offered to teach asset managers how to address nuisance issues, work with the city, and especially law enforcement in the community. Doing so in this manner will not disincentivize responsible investment and will also help improve the value of the properties, including the tax base you rely on. Thank you.
Are you familiar with how much the fee is?
The fee was supposed to be $155, I believe.
That's what it
Correct.
is.
Correct.
You just described, from my perspective, you just described something that isn't as front-end proactive, but more reactive to problems once they've already occurred. I think that what the spirit of this is, so that the City of Los Angeles can be proactive along with the actual property owners when they foreclose, so that we're given notice that they are in fact foreclosing, which gives us an opportunity to go ahead and make sure that Building and Safety or somebody from the city can go out there and make sure the property's okay. If the property's okay, then everything seems to be fine. But if any time during that point the property does go awry, we're much more proactive about it.
I understand, but look, I'm looking at it very much.
Excuse me for a second. One of the biggest problems with foreclosures is months and months and months go by before we harness the situation and bring it back into what it should be. That's one of the biggest problems. So one of the things that I personally like about this is and again, having been a real estate broker myself, having had dealt with foreclosures in the hundreds personally, I think that $155 is definitely, when you do it as a proactive advantage to both parties and the community, then I think that fee is a lot more appropriate than waiting for problems to occur and then fines beyond $155 like you just described.
I've worked both sides of it very down to the ground. I mean, dealing with it, and the $155 fee for those that are willing to do the right thing. They can still register, do a self-register. There should be a login. That would be simple, efficient, if LAHD does that. Allow them to log in. Doesn't mean you can't merge it with the county database and see what isn't logged in.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, so.
Nick.
Thank you, Councilman. My name is Doug Arson of the Valley Industry and Commerce Association, representing over 370 businesses in the city and surrounding areas. We recognize the importance of addressing the blight that is impacting our city. However, we join with the Central City Association and the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce, simply asking for more time for stakeholder meetings to address this issue. This motion has been fast-tracked and became on the radar of many of us within the past 2 days. We simply would like more time. Thank you.
No more time.
Thank you. Yeah, the motion wasn't introduced 2 days ago.
That's right, no more time.
Thank you very much. Next, we have a representative from Council District 13, Councilmember Garcetti's office, Sarah DeSalt.
Good morning. I'm Sarah Dussault. I'm Policy Director for Councilmember Eric Garcetti, and I just wanted to say a few words in support of his motion. This was a process that actually has lasted for several years, and over that period of time, we worked with your office, with other offices, to craft the original ordinance. And all of the stakeholders, including a variety of financial institutions, were involved. At that time, we came up with a complaint-driven system. And as we've seen over the last year, that system is not working. We've discussed for a while, how do we change this into a proactive system? Well, the City of Oakland tried it first. 9 months ago, they turned their program, which we've been modeling off of each other, into a proactive system, and they've seen significant results. So we would argue that a lot of the stakeholders have been involved for many, many years. At this point, clearly, we need to do more to save our neighborhoods and to save people from the devastation of vacant, abandoned homes. So we would urge your support, and we'll continue to work with everyone involved in this issue to make it successful. Thanks.
Thank you. Again, this has been a long process, and this is an issue that we've witnessed over the last few decades as foreclosures become more prevalent as they are today. What we've witnessed and experienced is that too many of these homes actually are dilapidated, abandoned, and then they become a blight to the community. And most importantly, there's some very, very dangerous situations, as I mentioned earlier. Just the simple fact that if there's a swimming pool with a body of water in it, and that children can actually go into that vacant property, and we have in fact had tragedies where children have drowned in vacant properties. And everybody involved is sorry about that, but you can't bring that child back. So this, once again, is a very proactive, and with all due respect, in the entire foreclosure process, $155 fee is in fact nominal, in my opinion. I do not see any more public comment cards before me on item number 1, so therefore public comment has been open and utilized on item number 1 and is now closed. So with that, it'll be a recommendation of the chair that we approve the motion Garcetti Alarcon, and it move forward, and it is before the council today, correct? Correct. Okay.
Yes, thank you, thank you.
That concludes all of the items as scheduled on today's agenda. Is there anybody here for general public comment to comment on items that are not before us today, that are of the purview of this committee? Seeing no one come forward, general public comment is now closed. With that, this committee is now adjourned.